Hello, good evening, and welcome back. I have incredibly slow internet, so I can't load all the things that I wanted to. However, because of that, I'm going to work with what I've got, and I've pulled this article from The Eye, which is Britain's most trusted digital news brand. I don't think it's a good sign if you have to call yourselves that, but so be it. I always go for let the reputation speak for itself. But today's topic is about jokes, what can be joked about, what can't be joked about, and why jokes are so important and also paramount to the British way of life. In fact, it even goes back to at least the First World War, as written about in Journey's End, with there's nothing worse than getting dirt in your tea. And this is people who are fighting in the trenches, that you use jokes, comedy is tragedy plus time. That hundreds of years old quote, I believe it could be even Shakespearean, although you'd have to change the English for that to sound right, and that's similar to, of course, the Bible being quoted in Old English to give it more power when it's a translation. So you can use a more common one. That's fine. You're not quoting the original, so just use what makes sense. And I think that's also the problem with like logic versus rhetoric. That politically speaking, the right seem to use logic and the left use rhetoric. It's hearts and minds, or hearts versus minds, facts versus feelings, that kind of thing. That you should be able to incorporate rhetoric with logic as well in order to get your message across in an understandable manner. Donald Trump is, of course, very good at this, with being able to say what he wants to say in very simple terms that everybody can understand, instead of sounding like an intellectual, or at worst, a pseudo-intellectual. And no, that is not a Law and Chen reference. Anyway, here we go. Jess Phillips harassed by man asking why UKIP candidate Carl Benjamin can't, scare quotes, joke about raping her. So he said he would not even. Then he said he was in a lot of pressure over it, so maybe he would if he was forced to do it. But let's be honest, no one has that much beer. So again, saying he won't, he can't. And even in the description, he said, this is a joke, not a dick, BuzzFeed. Don't take it so hard. And I appreciate the pun. Labour MP Jess Phillips has said she was harassed on her way out of Parliament by a member of the public who demanded why there had been outrage over a scare quotes joke about raping her by a UKIP candidate. I mean, I suppose it depends what we call a joke, but a joke isn't that just kidding, as in it's not true. I don't think it's a joke. I think that's fair enough. So in the first instance, I wouldn't even rape you. Cool. I'm relieved. I hope our beloved Carl wouldn't even rape me either. Sure, you've put even into it to garner attention, which was perfect, because it's insinuating that she's not even worth that, and she's despicable and ugly, and I'll leave that to yourselves. Obviously, I don't like the lady. And then later on saying that due to this outrage that he may be forced to rape her, but no one's got that much beer, and if we think of what force means, it means there is no choice but to do it. So I guess he wouldn't have a choice, saying he can't be drunk enough for that, which I think is well played, because of course then it's going into saying I would need to be so drunk that I can't give consent, in which case he would be the one being raped. If you're going with saying, oh well, you can't consent if you're that drunk, but of course by UK law you can't be raped by a woman, it's only sexual assault. Yes, another example of how the law favours women. Let's laugh about male suicide as well. And that fucking gets to me, that I looked up, and I don't think I've got the tabs open, but I looked up, self-harm, okay, in teenagers especially, because that's when I started. Self-harm in teenagers, what's the proportion of it, how many do it, and is there a gender imbalance? And the top 6 articles, at least searched by Google, are about saying, there's guys with girls self-harming, and what can we do for the girls? Let's help the girls. So what's the proportion? Okay, finally, I found that girls self-harm about 3 times as much as guys do. Okay, and then you look at suicide and you say, well, suicide is an issue affecting everybody. We must prevent it. What's the difference? Men commit suicide 4 times as much as women. So when something affects men 4 times as much as it affects women, it's everybody's issue. But when it affects girls 3 times as much as men, it's a women's issue. Can we stop this? And same with rape. Men are raped just as much, unless you exclude prison rape. What? Because you think they deserve it. You think people actually deserve rape, so you're saying it's not that bad, or that people who are sent to prison are not worth anything at all, in which case criminals should be able to vote. But that's American, isn't it? Right. Miss Phillips, MP for Birmingham Yardley, thank God I'm not there. I'm in Manchester, so I've got Lucy Poll. But anyway, was targeted by candidate Carl Benjamin, who shared a social media message in which he said he wouldn't even rape her. Yeah, wow, that's 3 or 4 years ago. And I wouldn't rape Miss Phillips either. I take a hardline stance of not raping people. I don't discriminate based on gender either. I wouldn't rape anybody. The comments sparked outrage among the public. Not really, just the mainstream media, because you dirty smear merchants twist it, don't you? To push an agenda, which is why things like YouTube are great, because they allow talented people to rise up the ranks without having to appease people. I mean, Helen Dale pointed this out very well in terms of comics, that, and you know I like Miss Dale, the Australian lovely lady, and said that in the decades past, in order to be a successful comedian, you'd have to do what pleases the comedy owners and work your way up from there. Whereas nowadays, with things like YouTube, Jonathan Pye has of course done well, and he's on BBC Three, and people like Bo Burnham, who started with YouTube and MySpace. I believe Bo Burnham just started by creating videos to send to his brother, and he did very well. So it's a great example of subverting the requirements for an agent and pleasing a particular person who thinks that you have promise, and just putting yourself out there. Obviously, that's what I'm doing as well. Which Mr. Benjamin responded to with a video suggesting he might rape the MP with enough pressure if he was forced to do it. With enough pressure, sure. Let's go with that. With enough pressure, well, isn't that true with anything for everyone? With enough pressure, you would do it, because you're gonna die, but sometimes death isn't an option. If you're forced to do something and death isn't an option, if you're saying it is, then I'm sure Carl would agree with that. But now you're threatening him with death, so good luck working that one out. And if you're taking jokes literally, then obviously the classic is Jess Phillips saying she would knife Jeremy Corbyn in the front instead of in the back. It's like, okay, so hang on, what about with the rising knife crime epidemics in the UK? And we wonder whose fault that is. Labour, yeah, great. Thanks, Tony Blair. I'm surprised he still gets paid as much as he does, but I suppose it's understandable when you're licking the arseholes of important people who are going to pay you afterwards. You get paid so much in so-called speaking fees. It isn't that at all, is it? It's just people returning the favour for you, helping them out. That's what politics has come to these days, isn't it? With the government being as large as it is, that people are going to pay you for doing their things. It's like with, in America, the 90% tax code. Well, that never happened to anybody, because the tax code was 10,000 pages long. The first 2 pages were laying out what it meant and how to be instituted, and the next 9,998 pages were just exceptions to the rule. It's bullshit. Like, if you shrink government down, then there isn't enough government to be lobbied. And I remember having a conversation on a train with someone saying that who's in government is more important than the size. And my thought was, well, no, it isn't, because if you decrease government enough and restrict it being able to increase, and I know that government only grows, it doesn't shrink, but if you're able to restrict the growth of government, then it doesn't really matter who's in it, because there isn't enough to do anything. And obviously back in the day, income tax wasn't a thing. It would just be value-added tax. So you've earned your money, you can have it, do whatever you want with it, but if you want to spend it, then we're going to get involved. The government's going to get involved. Anyway, arrest outside Parliament. Police announced on Tuesday that they were investigating a candidate in response to a report of malicious communications following the second set of threats. Are the police actually going to do something about these threats? And if there's an assault, of course that person's going to prison. But if it's somebody that you don't like Tommy Robinson, of course they're not going to be prosecuted, are they? And I like the fact that in Tommy Robinson's list of where he's going to be on each day, he includes London court date. I think it's the 13th of May, but I could be wrong. Miss Phillips revealed later that day that a man followed her as she left work and asked why Mr. Benjamin was prevented from making rape jokes about a public figure. She tweeted, so is she going to answer or not? Just leaving Westminster, and a man ran down the street alongside me asking why Carl Benjamin shouldn't be able to joke about my rape, shouting, "I pay your wages." Well, yes, as a government official, you are paid by the people for the people. So you should do what they want, otherwise you risk civil war. The idea with a representative democracy is that people vote you in because they think that you're going to uphold their interests and they can get on with their lives and not have to keep their finger to the pulse about every little thing that's going on with politics because that's being done for them. Again, smaller government means less MPs are needed, and then people can have a more predictable future and decide what to do with better understanding and better certainty of what's going to happen next, which is why then you won't have to hire so many accountants and waste so much of your business's money trying to find loopholes for if you make enough money. Like if you make a small amount of money, you don't pay tax. A bit more, you pay a little bit of tax. A bit more, a higher marginal tax rate. And if you earn a lot of money, you pay less tax because you get loopholes around it and you get laws written in to give you outs to it, which wouldn't happen if there was a smaller government. Mr. Benjamin had released a video on YouTube where he has a large following under the name Sargon of Akkad. Yes, almost as if he's popular, almost as if you're wrong. He began by listing spoof UKIP policies, including invading Spain and restoring the British Empire, before saying, there's been an awful lot of talk about... Okay, so you acknowledge this is all jokes. Yeah, cool. So why are you saying that this one isn't okay? There's been an awful lot of talk about whether I would or wouldn't rape Jess Phillips. I've been in a lot of trouble for my hardline stance of not even raping her. I suppose with enough pressure, I might cave, but let's be honest, nobody's got that much beer. Fair enough, good joke, I liked it, I loved the video, and I laughed a lot, and I shared it around. Miss Phillips said she broke down in tears. She broke down in the street, apparently. But we'll find part of that later, maybe. It's like, are you just watching videos in the street, and are people bombarding you with information about rape, in which case you need better friends? Or like, what are you doing? Why? And why is the legacy media or the mainstream media, why are they bringing up a load of information about rape if it's so bad? Just ignore it and it'll go away. Obviously, Sargon wouldn't have such a big following if, when he tweeted that, it was ignored. But you can't have that, can you? You've got to push your narrative with whatever means necessary, and you don't care for the victims, you just care about gaining more power and using any excuse you can in order to get that. And that's what I hate so much. UKIP leader Gerard Batten said the party has no knowledge of the police investigation, and he's also said to Carl Sargon to stop making jokes like that and just focus on the important policies of the political campaign. Yeah, fair enough, and Carl has been doing that when in politics mode, but he's also been making his own personal content when not in politics mode, and I fully understand that, and that's fine. And in terms of making jokes about things, I mentioned in a previous video that Frankie Boyle was making jokes about Tommy Robinson learning to walk backwards in prison. It's like, well, okay, great, a rape joke. That's fine. If we can have, like, equal treatment under the law, that's great. Instead of Frankie Boyle writing for The Guardian, and therefore he's given an exemption. What are you talking about? Or, of course, Jess Phillips herself saying she'd knife someone in the front. Oh, but that's okay because she's an MP already, in which case there's a two-tier class system. People who are in power can just say these things, and people who aren't in power can't say these things. That seems to be where Twitter's going, isn't it? Saying, oh, like Donald Trump, he can have a Twitter account because he's in power, but Sargon and Tommy Robinson, they can't have Twitter accounts, even if it isn't run by them and it's just for their campaign, because they're not in power. So it's a two-tier system. So let's see what happens between the publisher and platform debate. If they're going to say that, oh yes, you are a publisher, therefore you have to abide by the law of not slandering people, and you are accountable for everything on your site, otherwise we can sue you and not just the individual who's made it. Or if there's just a platform, in which case they shouldn't be having these biases of banning individuals, and it should be transparent. That is just how the employer-employee system works. And good old Milo saying, well, just give an email address because that's going to work. But anyway, my main point is that jokes are paramount. They are vital in order to get over things that you don't necessarily want to talk about. And even Sargon mentioned this, that if he wasn't making these jokes, he'd probably break down in tears at the state of things. And I'm very much the same. I joke about all sorts of things. Sexual assault and rape, even being on the receiving end of both those things, although as a man, as I've been raped by a woman, it doesn't count, does it? No, and I don't care. I'm not going to get the police involved because I can deal with myself as long as there isn't a baby from it. because, as you may know, that a woman can rape a man, not have it called rape, get him pregnant by that, and then make the man pay for the baby, and when the man can't pay for the baby, he's put in prison, because debtor's prison doesn't exist in the UK anymore, unless you're a man paying for child services. So that fucking sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, but that's the law, and it favours women, so fuck off, Jess. That lovely lady, I think we can all disagree with. But yeah, so and then joke about self-harm and suicide. My favourite one is about losing weight and referring to it as cutting, due to my own personal experience with cutting. And I have a friend, and we just flip those things. So when we're talking about losing weight for whatever we might be wishing to achieve, we refer to it as self-harm, and then when cutting, as in self-harm, it's then cutting, and we just flip those two around, and it's good fun. He hasn't self-harmed, to my knowledge, but I have, and I'm fine joking about these things. It makes people feel better, and especially with guys, that's the way we bond. And you're trying to say, oh, we can't have that because some other people get offended. It's like, well, fuck off. If you're not involved, then fuck off. If you want equal treatment under the law, then accept that that's how half of society is. And if you don't want it, then can we acknowledge that, and you'll get pushed down because you don't have a popular opinion, and then we can get on with it. But stop trying to hide under the guise of something else. Just be honest. Why is it so fucking difficult to be honest? Okay? If you hold a particular view, you've thought it through, then you're going to be fine with answering questions about it, and if you're aiming for the truth and the betterment of society, then you're going to be able to say, oh, maybe I was wrong about that. Thank you for letting me know. Let's reform that and move forward, instead of being dogmatic about it. Have you thought that you might be wrong about things? But anyway, that's it for today. I'm fucking sick of this saying that, oh, you can joke about this and not about that, and it's okay when I do it, not when you do it. Just fuck off. Can we just have equal treatment under the law? Can we see what the rules are regarding free speech on whatever platform we wish to use, and go, yeah, that's good, otherwise, no, we're going to go somewhere else? Can we have that? Because I know in the UK, at least, we don't have that. We have different laws for different people, and it's getting to the point where you go, okay, well, if, God forbid, anything happens to Tommy Robinson, if he's hospitalised or killed because of police negligence because they refuse to do anything, then I'm definitely going to be out on the street protesting, because that gets to a ridiculous point that the difference in laws means that it's okay for some people to be killed or hospitalised when it isn't for other people, and you let that happen. I am not going to live in a country where that happens. If that means I get killed in the process, that's fine. That is something I'm willing to die for. I don't give a shit. Okay? Like, everybody's got their breaking point, and that's definitely mine. Same thing, if something happens to Carl, if he gets hospitalised because the police refuse to do anything, then I'm definitely going to step in. I would love Britain to be great again and have one law for everybody and reignite our British culture and be a proud Brit and Englishman. But if that's not going to happen, I don't want to be in this country. I want to be in a country which likes its culture, which respects it, like Japan. I love Japan. And hopefully I'll be there for my birthday. But anyway, that's it for now. Have a lovely day. Joke about whatever you want, because, funnily enough, you might just make somebody feel better. So like, comment, subscribe, share this around, all that good stuff. And here's a fun one then. And I know I'll have to manually approve a lot of these, but I'm fucking up for it. In the comments, write your most offensive joke that you find hilarious, like your favourite offensive joke. I promise I'm going to laugh at all the good ones, and I will favourite the best ones, but I could do with some cheering up. So give me your most offensive jokes. We know that the concept itself is what's funny, not the supposed victim of it. As fucking ridiculous as it is, just, people cheer up. So got your most offensive joke. I will like it. I will favourite it. I will pin the best one. Everyone else, like, comment and subscribe. Share this around, and I will see you next time. Have a good evening.